everyone. It's me, Lisa, aka Wolf and Storm, coming at you live with another video. Yes. I know I said I would be making videos much sooner than this, but again, work has gotten in the way. Although it's not like I've not been online. Uh, I know you guys definitely saw me online after the premiere of Doctor Who's Centenary Special, The Power of the Doctor. So you have all of my thoughts about that particular episode already on Noel's channel. So I'm going to try to keep that review to a minimum because this video is actually about something else. But before we go any further, of course, the usual housekeeping. Please help me keep on keeping on to be able to keep this content going and this channel alive. Visit me down in my social media links there in the description on Twitter and Patreon. And of course, the YouTube channel. Please like, share, subscribe. Yep, right there. To help me keep on keeping on. So, first off, the rest of the episodes of Inside Man. We're going to start with the David Tennant news. I don't know how much, I really don't know what else to say at this point. I watch anything he's in simply because it's him, but sometimes I will admit it can be a slog depending on what it is that he's in. Usually he can lift anything, absolutely anything, no matter how bad it is. But there are times, take camping for example, which just did not translate very well to American audiences. Inside Man was a kind of co-op production between the United States and the UK. And I will say that David Tennant's performance as the vicar and Stanley Tucci's performance as the murderer on death row are chef's kiss. Perfect. The writing behind it, though, was just... I don't want to say this is a Moffat problem because this was a Moffat creation. I don't know if he himself wrote all the episodes or only a few or maybe just one. I don't know. But the situations that Harry got himself into, it was literally, and ask anybody on Twitter who's watched it will tell you the same thing. It is literally like watching a slow motion train wreck that never seems to stop. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. All he was trying to do was help a member of his parish out of a situation. Should he have been helping him instead of reporting him to the police? No, he should have been reporting him to the police. The particular member of this parish, now, spoilers for everything else ahead. If you have not seen Inside Man, Doctor Who, or Quantum Leap, go no further. But this particular parishioner had a, let's say, predilection towards certain pornographic materials that were not fit for human consumption of the kiddie variety. And he was afraid his mother would find out. I mean, his mother already knew that he had this proclivity, which is why she used to beat the shit out of him all the time. She apparently thought that it would make him stop. And she was always searching him to make sure he didn't have any pictures on him. So his mother was coming to pick him up from church that day, and he gave the thumb drive of the pictures to Harry, the vicar, to keep for him. He said he would pick it up later. So Harry didn't realize what kind of porn it was. He thought it was just, your regular standard issue porn, if there's any regular porn. Never mind. Anyway, so he goes home, and his wife is there, and his son is just coming home from school, and his son has got a math tutor who's there tutoring him, right? So Harry's in his office. They live in a little cottage there in this little town, and he puts the thumb drive in just to see what the hell it is just to make sure he didn't get himself into something stupid, right? And that's when he realizes what the fuck it is. That it's, yeah, some nasty shit. So he doesn't realize, he's in such a rush to, figure out what to do and get shit done, that he doesn't realize what's going on. The tutor shows up and she wants to use his laptop to start the tutoring session, and she doesn't realize that the thumb drive is still in there. And when she opens it up and she sees it, at first she thinks it belongs to his son, because she saw the thumb drive and she tried to ask Harry what it was, and he said it wasn't his. He was holding it for somebody else. But he didn't want her to, look at it. And she started getting suspicious. And then when she saw what was on it, she confronted him and accused the son with having no real proof that it was the son. I mean, all of this mess in this woman's mind came about out of her own deluded brain. Like, you could obviously tell from the beginning of the series when this started that the woman was a hermit. And outside of her work at the school and tutoring, excuse me, that she didn't have much of a life outside of it. And that she didn't, outside of her students, tend to interact with anybody else. Not really, other than her sister. And that she lives a very secluded life. And I don't want to give her the title of Karen, because I don't think she is, but I think she's one of those types that obviously does care a great deal about children, but at the same time, she struck me as someone who tends to blow things out of proportion easily without having all the facts, especially when it comes to something having to do with children. She immediately assumes that the porn belongs to the boy, and he's trying to disabuse her of that notion, but she doesn't believe anything he says. She has no proof otherwise that it belongs to the son. She doesn't have any proof that it belongs to Harry. She has no proof of anything. Just that this thumb drive exists with this information on it. But she refuses to believe anything otherwise. So he's trying to talk to her. She's trying to leave. He's trying to get her to say so he can at least talk it out with her. But it's like a slow moving train wreck of stupidity. And as he's talking to her, without realizing what he's doing, he's maneuvering her towards the door that goes down to the cellar. And they're kind of arguing about it. He's trying to get her to stay. She loses her balance. She falls backwards, goes tumbling down the stairs. I'm serious. He did not push her. She went, he didn't, because they were so swept up in the conversation that they were having, he didn't realize how close she was to the lip of the doorway. And she went backwards and blew down the stairs. And she was kind of in and out of consciousness for a minute or so. And he realized while she was down there, well, what was he going to do? Because she could easily make it look like he had pushed her or tried to kill her or some shit. So he feels he has no choice but to lock her down there. And then after that, it's just a succession of stupid decisions that makes things even worse. They're too afraid to let her out of the cellar because they know that if they know that she believes that the porn belongs to his son, and she can easily destroy his life with no real proof that it belongs to him just by going to the cops and saying so. And then of course her face is bloody because she went down the stairs. She can implicate the father, by saying that he tossed her down the stairs, and there would be no real proof. Otherwise, it would be his word against hers. And so the wife comes home from wherever she was at, and she finds out this is going on, and she freaks out. She's like, what the fuck is going on? Why are you doing this? While this is happening in the United States, in a death row prison cell out west, the journalist lady that made friends with this math tutor is there on a story. And while she's there trying to get a story from this guy who will not talk to her because he's very selective about the people he sees and about the cases that he takes, she brings in one, but he thinks it's not like morally questionable enough for him to give a shit about. Apparently, but him taking these cases while he's on death row is his way of trying to make up for what he did to his wife. Even though you're not really sure at the end of the day whether or not he's actually sorry for what he did. So all the cases he chooses has to have some sort of moral need. And he feels like the case she brought him does not have it. While she's talking to him, she gets a text from the tutor who at that time was freaking out because she thought Harry was trying to kill her. And she had clicked a quick picture of something of blurry Harry and a hand, and that's all you could really see. She sent the text to her this journalist person, who wasn't even really her friend. That's the even creepier thing. This journalist chick is claiming that this woman's her best friend in the world, and yada yada yada, and I'm gonna figure out what the fuck happened to her and all this. You piece of shit, because you did this to her, blah blah blah. I'm like, girl, you barely know this chick. She helped you out of a situation on the subway. That's great, but she ain't your best friend. You don't even know her. The math tutor winds up being a manipulative cow. The journalist has an attachment problem and really doesn't know how to say no and thinks that she's better than everybody. The only one that seems, oddly enough, that seems normal in this case are the guys on death row. And the rest of them seem like caricatures of characters. So the be all and end all of it is basically the journalist shows the picture to Stanley Tucci's character and says, I need your help. I think my friend is in trouble. I need to find her. And that's when he cottons on to and thinks, okay, I can use this. I can go with that. This seems interesting. And throughout the 4 episodes, he's feeding her information and helping her out to find out what's happened. Meanwhile, back in the UK, Harry's trying to figure out what to do with this woman in the basement. Because the next day, she's supposed to have a Skype call. I should tell you just how old this chick is, that she's still using Skype. Anyway, she has a Skype call with her sister. And if she doesn't answer the call, her sister's going to think something's wrong and she's going to call the authorities. So they have to either get her to cancel the call or let her go or something. They're too afraid to let her go because they know as soon as she does, she's going to scream bloody murder. That and implicate the son, who wasn't even there and didn't have anything to do with it. But this woman is so ignorant and stupid that she just struck me as the type of person who immediately takes things wildly out of context without having all the information. So all those like conspiracy theorists you see online, she's probably one of them, I guarantee, because she could read something and assume something without having any facts and think it's true. She just struck me as that type. But also extremely manipulative, like extremely. So throughout the course of the next day or so that they have her there, they managed to get the call canceled so that, the sister won't think something's up. But they still have this lingering problem of what to do. Harry tries to go to the parishioner and get him to confess. But being the little pissant that he is, he won't confess. And so Harry decides the only other thing he can do is put the porn on his laptop and make it look like it was him to spare his son. Even though there's zero proof that the porn belongs to his son. It's just a memory card. It's just a thumb drive. There's no latent proof that it was ever put in the son's personal laptop or that it was downloaded from the son's computer. Nothing. I don't know if Harry realizes this or isn't up enough on police procedures, but I mean, there's really no proof that will be linking them other than the existence of this thumb drive. And if they dusted it for prints, they would probably find the prints of the parishioner on it too. And if they looked at the parishioner's computer, I'm assuming that it was downloaded from the parishioner's computer. And even though Harry himself didn't know that the parishioner had this proclivity, it was kind of like an open secret amongst the church goers and the community that they all kind of knew that he had this proclivity, but they just never said nothing. I don't know why. They really should have. He should have been in jail. And if they had said something, then he would have been. But I guess for the sake of the man's mother, So when him trying to get this kid to confess doesn't work, even so far as trying to get him to record the confession on his own cell phone, it doesn't work. Like I said, he decides to make it look like it was him to spare his son. Uh, the kid hangs himself. The guy hangs himself because he just can't deal, and I guess Harry feels responsible because he wound him up so much about it, saying that God will never forgive you unless you confess and all this blah 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 blah. That the guy just couldn't deal anymore, and he hangs himself. But he leaves a note in the church saying the vicar's not a pedo or the vicar is lying, something like that. So now they really are stuck. He knows that now that they're investigating the death of this guy, that they're going to be able to trace his movements back to Harry. So eventually the cops are going to come to question him. They've got her still stuck down there. They're still trying to figure out what to do. Harry doesn't want to keep her there. He wants to let her go. He doesn't want to hurt her. And he's trying to, like, negotiate with her, but she is so fucking manipulative. First of all, she lies to him. Then she goes and she tells the same story to Harry's wife, but manipulates the story to make it look like Harry is going to try to kill her. Whereas when she's talking to Harry, she's manipulating him by making it look like his wife is going to kill her. She's unbelievable. Like, unbelievably manipulative. She's psycho. She's more psycho than even the serial killer person. I mean, she cray. So, Harry wants to let her go. The son is starting to wise up to think something ain't right. Because the tutor was supposed to be there and didn't come. And his father's just not acting right. His parents are just not acting right. Something not right. He goes down to tell her himself and he finds her there. And she starts manipulating him. And Harry doesn't realize that his son is down there. And he's afraid that she'll start screaming and alerting everybody else, especially when he knows that the police are coming. So he puts tape around the outside of the door as if the cops would fucking see that. I mean, come on. Thinking that if the cracks in the door are sealed, that if she tries to scream or yell, they won't hear her. Not realizing that his son's down there with her. His son tries to get out but can't. He's screaming for his dad, but because it's taped up, can't hear him. So both of them are freaking out. The wife leaves the house for a little while trying to figure out what she's going to do. They've already Googled how to kill her. So they already know that it's probably going to come to that, even if they don't want it to come to that. Harry won't let her in the house because psycho bitch downstairs really has him believing that the wife's going to kill her. And so she's wandering around town trying to figure out what to do, and she wanders into a store to buy something, and the journalist chick who has come back from the U.S. is in the store, recognizes her from her investigation and tries to talk to her, and the woman freaks out so much from being questioned that she runs out of the store and doesn't realize where she's going and runs into a passing bus that literally mows her down into nothingness. So now the wife's dead. The son is still trapped under there, and she's on and on about how he's trying to ask her what the fuck is going on, why they're down there, why she's down there, what the hell has happened. And then when she finally tells him about the porn, he's freaking out thinking, oh my god, you think I have porn? I don't have porn. And she didn't believe him. This chick doesn't believe anything anybody says. I mean, you could literally show her God-approved proof and she still wouldn't buy it. She's crazy. This kid freaks out so much thinking he's going to go to jail for something that he didn't do. He picks up a hammer and he bashes her over the head with it. And you think at first that she's dead. She finally manages to get out of the house. Or he finally manages to get out of the house and run. The cops are there. So the cops are on their way. So Harry downloads the porn onto his computer and does everything he could, does a bunch of Google searches for porn sites to make it look like it was him. Because he's trying to spare his son, even though it wasn't necessary. Honest to God, it wasn't necessary. The kids run off. The cops come. They find her. God knows what she fucking told them. Probably a bunch of bullshit lies. But Harry is adamant that the porn was his. And the next thing you see is he is in jail. I'm assuming the son went to live with other family members since the mother's dead. And Harry is on a Skype call, or he's on a call on a laptop with the death row inmate in the U.S. prison played by Stanley Tucci. And they're having this conversation. And the very last scene is Stanley Tucci's character walking with his friend to that conference room, getting shackled down, and then psycho bitch, who was the cause of all this bullshit, walks in there wanting to talk to him to bring him a case. Yeah. But he's already got word from the prison system that his date for execution has been firmly set. So he doesn't have a whole lot of time. This might be the last case he gets to work on before he dies. So yeah, that's the basic plot. It is a slow motion train wreck of utter implausibility. I mean, the decisions made in this mini series are egregiously ridiculous. I just can't. Like, I can't. There were so many ways that everything that happened to Harry could have been avoided. I mean, honestly. I will give props to Stanley Tucci and to David Tennant. They always manage to lift whatever they're in. I guarantee you, if it had been anybody else but David Tennant playing the main role, it probably would have been even worse. I will plainly say that not everything that David Tennant in it is good. Some stuff is just shit, and this one happened to be kind of shit. Although David Tennant's scenes were, of course, stellar because, you know, he lifts everything and he's great in everything. And sometimes you slog it through because of loyalty. So yeah, that's Inside Man in a nutshell. Would not recommend unless you're really a hardcore David Tennant fan and want to be a completist. But anyway, we have something else on the David Tennant pipeline coming through other than the 60th. Lidvenko, the first production stills have just come out. We know it is going to premiere on ITVX, ITV's new streaming platform in the UK, in December. So it's shaping up to look really good. The production stills we've seen so far look really good. So I'm kind of excited for that. We'll review it as soon as it comes out. Other than that, the only thing I know of, other than his performances of good that he's still doing, he's up to like 33, 34 performances. I don't know how many more performances they're going to do. The 60th. Okay, you guys have listened to everything I wanted to say about The Power of the Doctor over on Noel's channel when we initially reviewed it when it came out. So I'm not really going to say too much other than you know what I think about the performances. That Jodie was crap as usual because, you know, she always is. The plot was nonsensical, drivel. It was pretty much everything plus the kitchen sink and another kitchen sink on top of it. It was basically Chibnall going, I don't fucking care, here you go, fuck you all. It doesn't make sense, I don't give a shit. He was wanting to go out with a bang and a bang-filled whimper. Yeah, it was a lot of mess that made no sense. Characters popping up out of nowhere that made no sense. Characters departing for no real reason that made no sense. Like Dan and Graham. The whole storyline with the Master and why he needed to be Rasputin just to get them out of the palace so he could have it to himself in that particular time frame. No real reason. Just plot. and because they wanted him to dance to Rah Rah Rasputin, I guess. I know a lot of people that reviewed it said that it was supposed to be some sort of homage to Doctor Who. That wasn't an homage. That was out and out theft. I mean, that whole scene where the Cyberman opens up and a whole bunch of Cybermen comes pouring out, like the Genesis arc in Doomsday, it was pretty much the Genesis arc from Doomsday. This wasn't, I could name 7 episodes just off the top of my head that this episode stole from. Stolen Earth, Journey's End, Doomsday, Army of Ghosts. Jesus, what else? End of Time Part 2. Sound of Drums, Last of the Time Lords. What else? Really? It's like he took the choicest pieces from all of the finales and used them in his plot because, of course, it's Chibnall and he can't write any shit for himself. He has to steal everything. There's a difference between an homage and just out and out theft. The only reason I gave it a 5 initially when I reviewed it was because of Ace and Tegan being there and the older doctors. That was awesome sauce. They could lift up a whole 90-minute episode, and all they had in total, all of them together, was maybe 5 minutes worth of screen time. And in that 5 minutes, they lifted up 90 minutes worth of Drek. So, yeah. Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, Paul McGann. Wish Tom Baker could have been there. I know some people are saying, oh, he thought and didn't want to be there. No. They called him. They asked him. He was unavailable. I think he has enough love for the show that if they had called and asked and he was available, he would have done it. Christopher Eccleston, his reasons. He's just not going to, especially in a multi-doctor story. It's just not going to happen. And with the older doctors already there, his reasons for that. He doesn't like multi-doctor stories. He thinks they're gimmicky. He wouldn't do it. He's already said multiple times that if they presented him with a script where it was an anniversary special where it was just him, that he would do it. If it was just him. But multi-doctor stories, you're never going to get him to do a multi-doctor story, period. That's just his opinion. So, it would have been nice to see him there, but oh well. But it was awesome sauce seeing the rest of them there. They did so much to lift up that mess. It was basically just Chibnall throwing shit, saying, here, have this, and some kitchen sinks over here and here and here, and yeah. Don't really care about the plot or story, just bing, bang, boom, lights, pretty, boom, boom, and yeah, we're done, the end. No resolution to the Timeless Children storyline. Didn't think that we were going to get one because Chibnall's a fucking coward. And he wrote himself into a fucking corner and had no way out because the storyline was bullshit from the jump. So how the fuck was he going to end it to satisfy anybody? BBC was like, leave it alone, which is what he pretty much did. So he destroyed the entire 60 years worth of canon for nothing. For absolutely nothing. Will Russell touch it? Probably not. What's the point? You're only going to fuck shit up more if you do. Thasmin, 0. Other than the scene where she's carrying the 13th Doctor back to the TARDIS after she gets shot by that energy creature. That was the extent of the Thasmin. Not that I expected anything. Because they don't have a real relationship. At least not one that was actually developed. And she just was pretty much says, well, it's time for me to go now. Bye-bye. Peace. See you later. No real emotional goodbye or hugs, kisses, nothing like that. Just peace out. Deuces. Bye. Gotta do this one alone. And she regenerates. In a David fucking Tennant. Oh! Yes! Oh, you should have seen my face. I mean, I of course knew that this was going to happen because I've seen the filming of the 60th. I've known this for a while, but still, seeing him on my screen again as the Doctor, and not just some temporary Doctor because of whatever the situation is with the 60th, but he's actually a numbered canon Doctor. So saith God himself, Russell. Confirmed, he is in fact the 14th Doctor, and Ncuti Gatwa will be the 15th. Oh, I'm so happy right now. I know it's temporary, it's only 3 episodes, but still, to have him back in this role is a dream. A real dream. And at the same time, it's kind of heartbreaking too, because I remember how hard it was for me to let him go the first time. And now I'm going to have to let him go again. I don't know how I'm going to... I don't want to do to Ncuti what I did to Matt. I didn't give Matt his due, what he deserved, because I was so heartbroken over losing David. And I don't want that to happen with Ncuti. Ncuti doesn't deserve that. So I'm just going to have to grin and bear it and get through it as best as I possibly can. I'm going to hope that this time around... What really gives me hope is that this regeneration has all the memories of the others. He remembers the fact that Gallifrey survived, that he didn't kill them, that they're alive. If you're ignoring what happened when Time as Children, what the Master did, of course. I mean, why not ignore it? Chibnall is. That he wasn't responsible for their deaths, that he saved them. This would give him a whole new outlook. He won't have to be mired in that intense guilt anymore. I want to see how that plays out with him. And if it makes him have a little less of an ego than he used to have before. It makes him a little less rash than he used to be. I'm also interested to see who the special guests are. I mean, I know we already know about Donna and her family. But it has been alluded that there are some other special guests coming in for the 60th, but we just haven't seen them on camera because they filmed in studio and not outside. It could be any one of a number of doctors. It could be any one of a number of past companions. Rose Tyler. I can't imagine David Tennant being in the role for any length of time without some allusion to Rose somewhere. She's too important to him. I mean, I know that when he first meets up with Donna, that she's calling for Rose, her daughter, and he mistakes Rose for, Rose. So, I can't speculate. Can't. But yeah, really the only good things about the Power of the Doctor was the older doctors coming in. Tegan and Ace, oh my goodness. Sophie, Aldred, and Janet Fielding. Awesome sauce. Tegan's my bitch. I love her. Ace is my boo. I love her. They're great. And the scenes where they got to talk to their respective doctors, to the 5th Doctor and the 7th, which is, verklempt. Because there were things that they needed to, say. With Tegan, it was a little confusing, though, because he didn't just dump her. She was the one that left him because of what happened in, her Dalek story. She couldn't deal. She said, my mother always said, when it's not fun anymore, it's time to go. And that's why she left, because it scared her to death what happened with the Daleks. She didn't want to be there anymore. So I don't know why she was so angry. But maybe she was assuming because they were so close that he would have come to see her at least once. But they all had to know that's not his way. He doesn't do that. He doesn't look back. Although with very few exceptions. Very few exceptions. And of course, the return of our classic doctors who are completely awesome. Oh, and David Bradley is the first Doctor as well. That was cool too. I would love to have seen the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th Doctors, but they could only do so much. Apart from that, I'm just glad this era is over. Chibnall and Jodie are out. We can move on. That the show needs to move on. I know some people were upset. Some people were upset that David Tennant was coming back. Why are you retreading old doctors over it? This show needs the boost. It's on its last legs. The only reason that the ratings got a top up, which I predicted it probably would, was mostly because of the older doctors and the regeneration. Because, of course, David Tennant's going to give you a top up. It's David fucking Tennant. So, yes, most people would be tuning in not for the episode itself, but for the regeneration, if nothing else. But still, past regeneration episodes have done much better than this. So, yeah, the show's got problems. The BBC knows it. So they did what they had to do. to save what's left of this dying show. They got the best show runner, the one that brought it back from nothing, and arguably the best actor to play the Doctor, at least in my mind anyway, so far. So, who is responsible for the golden age of the show that brought in the most viewers, at least in the New Who era. So, yeah, I'm not going to go too much more into reviewing that. Like I said, we already discussed that on Noel's channel. Now, the real reason for this video. I know last month and a half ago, when Quantum Leap first came out, I reviewed the first 2 episodes, and I said that I was going to review them in twos, like 1, 2, and then 3 and 4. I haven't done that, and there's a reason for that. It wasn't just because I was exhausted from work. That is part of it. But the other reason is because as I was watching them, I realized that there was no reason for me to review them piece by piece, because my issues with the show thus far have not changed from episode to episode. They're all the problems are pretty much continued. They're all the same all the way through. I will say that some episodes are better than others. Episode 3 was a little bit more of a return to form. A little bit. Episode 6, closer. This last episode 8, it was the closest they've gotten so far to the original spirit of Quantum Leap. But the problems that this show has far outweigh the good parts. Before I get into this, if you have not watched Quantum Leap, again, spoilers going forward. But the bigger thing I want to mention is that I have watched all kinds of different Quantum Leap reviews on YouTube by all different kinds of reviewers. I've watched reviews from casual viewers that don't have a lot of experience with the original show, and I've watched reviews from hardcore fans that have, watched the show back in the day when they were kids, that host that Al's Place website, that know the details. And all these reviews have one thing in common. They can seem to get details correct. The ones that are casual viewers, I give those a pass on, because, again, they're casual viewers. So they don't know a lot of the context. They don't know a lot of, like, the nitty-gritty iceberg stuff. But the hardcore fans that are reviewing should know the details if they are as hardcore as they claim to be. I understand that a lot of time has passed and you might not remember everything. Hell, I don't remember everything, but I know enough about the Quantum Leap iceberg that I can keep my shit straight. I cannot stand when people review stuff and the information that they give out is not accurate. Because that just skews your whole review in the wrong direction, and it makes me not want to listen to your review if you can't give out accurate details. Okay, my number one problem with the show going forward, it used to be the fact that there was too much split between the Leap and the present day. Right now, they've kind of whittled it down to a sort of, I would say, rough estimate 85-15, where it's about 85% Leap, 15% present. Except for episode 7. That one got down to about 90% Leap, 10% present. Which is a good direction. The reason why the original show was so powerful and went so strong was because they had very well-developed characters for each and every Leap, and that made you get invested in their story. And it's hard to do that in this new one when everything is at such a breakneck pace. I've said this often in Reddit posts, in posts on Al's Place, and all kinds of other places where I've talked about Quantum Leap. That is my number one issue with this show, is that you cannot get invested in the characters on the Leap enough, because he's not with them long enough. As a matter of fact, I think this last episode, Stand By Ben, episode 8, was the longest amount of time that he spent on any one Leap. He was there with them, I think, like 2 days. And that is the longest that he's ever been. Everything else, he's been with them no more than a day. maximum, except for maybe the boxer one. It doesn't give him enough time to connect with these people, to understand them. The other thing in that same vein is that, judging by the way that he has conversations with Addison, it seems to me like they don't care about these people. Not as much as they should. I mean, yeah, they care as a human being would care about another human being, but they don't care enough to get invested. They care in as far as doing whatever they have to do to get out and to keep leaping. That is irritating to me. Sam cared about these people to a fault, to the point where he would put his own life at risk to save these people, to make their lives better. Ben, I just don't get that from him. I get that he do what he's got to do to get the leap done. Matter of fact, this latest episode, Stand By Ben, was the first time I actually saw him give a damn. Like, really give a damn about the people he was with. I don't know if that's because they were teenagers and they were having a really hard life. Because he didn't seem to have that much in common with them. But it really was the first time it felt to me like he really cared. And that's the problem. They need to develop the characters on the leaps more. They need to give Ben time alone with these characters. That is a big problem. I know some people that have reviewed the show say they like Addison as a character. I don't. I have nothing against the actress that's playing her. I'm sure she's a good actress and she's doing whatever she can with whatever she's been given. But the character is terrible. In the original, Al was there as a source of information when Sam needed him. He was there as a source of moral support, lend a little bit of levity and a little bit of comedy when he needed it. But he wasn't leading Sam around by the nose. Sam was a grown-ass man, very intelligent, and could usually figure shit out on his own. Sometimes he was able to figure out why he was on a leap before Al even told him. So, really, he didn't need that much help. But it seems like Ben can't take a piss on this fucking show without Addison being up his ass. Or leading around by a fucking leash. I think, even though Stand By Me is the closest they've gotten to the true spirit of Quantum Leap, it would have been better if Addison had not been there, or only been there minimally, and just let Ben get to know those teenagers on his own. Because prior to that, when he was trying to get them to talk to him, they were just yelling at each other and nothing seemed to be getting done. It wasn't until they bunked down for the night in their little camp and started talking to each other that things seemed to gel better between them, and they started to get to know each other better. And of course, Addison's sitting there with them at the fire the entire time. I'm like, can this bitch never leave? Like, doesn't she have shit to do back at the project or something? This is caused by another problem. The fact that there's no waiting room. In the original show, there was a waiting room. So Al always had someone to go back to talk to get more information from or to find things out from. In this one, there is no waiting room. Judging by some of the things that they've said in the last couple of episodes, I've finally been able to pin down the fact that he's not surrounded by their aura. When Ben leaps into them, they're literally sharing a space. Because he says, okay, in the What a Disaster episode 6, when he's running through the sewers, trying to get to the man's son, he's out of breath. Which shouldn't happen because Ben is a pretty fit guy. He's only like 35. He's pretty fit. And Addison says to him, well, you're in the body of a guy who hasn't exercised in God knows how fucking long. So, he's actually sharing a body with another person. Which negates the need for a waiting room if the other person does not leap out. So Addison really has no reason to go back to the project once he's there, because there's nobody there for her to converse with or to talk to, unless there's an emergency going on at the project site, like what happened in this past episode when it was locked down. Holy Jesus. I cannot fucking stand this chick. And now the entire back half of the episode is going to be dedicated to her. Because, spoilers, apparently Ben has remembered the reason why he leaped was because she is supposed to die at some unknown point in the future. And he's doing whatever he's doing to keep her from dying. How she's supposed to die, don't know. When, don't know. But she's supposed to die, and Ben's trying to stop it. So him changing people's lives for the better is just a consequence of his actions and not really the long-term goal of the project. Why do I feel like I'm watching two different shows smushed together? You've got the mystery present day shit going on with the team, and you've got the leaps in the past. And the leaps feel to me like an afterthought. They feel to me like they're just a consequence of Ben's actions, and it's something he just got to deal with. I don't trust these people. I just don't. I knew Sam's motives from the jump. When he started this project, it was because he wanted to help people. He wanted to change the world and make it a better place. What their reasons are, other than Magic, who's pretty plain about the fact that he's trying to bring Sam home, I don't know what reasons the rest of them have. Other than to prove the fact that a person can travel in time, which Sam already proved. It's not like the proof isn't already there. If they bothered to read Sam's case files, leap files, that Al meticulously kept. Apart from being able to send someone back in time and retrieve them, I don't know what their motives are. I don't feel comfortable with them. I feel like they don't care about Ziggy. I want to hear Ziggy's voice. Ziggy is an AI, extremely intelligent, supercomputer. And this asshole, Ian, has to Google shit on his laptop to find shit out. What the fuck is that? You don't need to do that when you have a highly intelligent AI supercomputer at your disposal. Why the fuck do you need to go onto fucking Facebook or Instagram or Google to find your information? That's bullshit. Bullshit. In the original series, Ziggy could do millions of computations in a minute. Could find you anything that you needed. You didn't need to go into fucking Google, Instagram, fucking Facebook. It's ridiculous. The only storyline that's compelling to me in the present is what's going on with Janice. I personally like Janice a hell of a lot more than Addison. I feel like she has much more skin in the game. And I feel like if Addison was not there, Janice would be so much better suited to be the observer than Addison. She is there far too much. She gets in the fucking way. She's always talking to him all the time. And that's all he does when he's there is he's talking to her. That's what they do. They make fucking googly eyes for 40 minutes. And you know, he can't focus on the fucking leaps. God forbid he should leap into someone that is in a relationship with someone else. He's got to get all kissy face. What's he going to fucking do? When he's got her standing there staring at him. How the fuck is that going to work? He can't seduce someone. He can't lay on the charm or whatever it is that he's got to do because it'd be too awkward with her standing there staring at his face. That's why in the original Sam had no memory of Donna, and Al was sworn to secrecy to never tell him. Because it was the only way that Sam could do his job. Donna knew this. She loved him enough to understand that the only way he could get his job done and do what he had to do to help these people was to not know. But Addison is too fucking paranoid and is too freaked out at the idea of him not knowing to not tell him. But then again, in the same vein, he's never with them long enough to make a connection anyway, so what does it matter? It's not like he's there for days or a week to make a connection with these people. to have to go that far with anyone. So, I mean, in the episode in San Francisco in '89 with the psychic, Sam was there for like a week, almost 2 weeks. Actually, he had a full-fledged relationship with her because she could see his face because she was psychic eyes. Yeah, she could see him for who he truly was. You know, in all the leaps, he was there for days, sometimes a week, maybe more. And it helped him to understand these people, get to know them, being invested. It helped us to be invested with these people. Now, it's so breakneck, you barely have a chance to really breathe. And by the time it's over, he's there. The most that I've seen so far that he's been on any one leap is like 2 days. The Halloween episode from last week, I know people say it's the spiritual successor to the Boogeyman from the original show. Not really. At least the characters in the original were actual characters. And by the way, he did not leap into Stephen King. I don't know who the fuck said that. He did not. He leapt into a horror author who lived in the town that Stephen King grew up in, and his assistant, his little teenage assistant, was Stephen King before he became famous. That episode, it was kind of metaphysical, and you really weren't sure what was going on at first. You didn't even realize that the owl that was there wasn't the actual owl, but it's some sort of demon or something, possibly. And it was the first instance where we got the idea that Sam was a force for good, and there was something else evil in the world that didn't like what Sam was doing. Of course, this would get rehashed again until the Evil Leaper stuff in season 5, but it was a very interesting aspect that they were throwing out there. In this one, the best thing about episode 7, O Ye of Little Faith, was the fact that Addison was barely in it. Because of whatever was going on, there were some technical problems, and Addison could not maintain her hologram where Ben was. So Ben spent the majority of this on his own, which was fucking fantastic to finally not have that earworm sitting there every single fucking time. He basically had to pick himself up by his own bootstraps and figured this shit out on his own. And he did a great job of it, you know? He figured out that it wasn't actually a demon, that the members of the family were poisoning this girl. And he solved it. Was some of it a little bit implausible? Yeah. The characters were not as developed as I would have liked. They felt more like caricatures, especially the way that they were made up in the costuming. I still feel like the immersion is not enough. Just having a couple songs here and there and a couple period costumes sprinkled here and there, it's not enough. You want to immerse yourself. The whole environment has to feel like it's in that time frame. Quantum Leap, the original, was great at that. And I know what you're going to say. Well, they filmed on the same backlots that the new one is. Yes, but there's a difference. Belisario always made sure when they were filming that even though they only had a certain number of backlots to use, that they dressed them perfectly to be able to immerse the audience in that period of time. That you would never know the difference. As a matter of fact, I'm going to point this out. Fact. I think season 2 episode, Good Morning Peoria, yeah! That backlot scenery for Peoria is the same backlot scenery that they used in the season 5 episode where Sam leaps back to Elkridge, 1972, in the middle of a bank robbery. He's the middle brother, and there's a band of 3 brothers in the bank trying to rob the bank to keep them from taking their farm. When you go outside and you see the Elkridge set, that is the same. There are certain elements that you can tell, but it's very subtle. Because the way that they dress these sets, perfect. Absolutely perfect. The location shots were perfect. The feel of the film grain was, it just added to the aesthetic. The outfits were on point, the hairstyles, the music, which was a major focus, on point. The new show, they don't really do that. They give you a little bit here and there because they don't really care about immersing you. You're not there long enough to care. There's maybe 1, 2 songs if you're lucky. But that's just to establish that, yeah, this is the 80s, or yeah, this is the 70s. But that's about as much as you get. You don't feel a connection with the time period. You don't feel a connection with the characters. They don't give you the chance to have that connection. It's annoying as fuck. I'm going to give you an example by comparing and contrasting two different yet similar episodes, one from the original and one from the new one. And the reason why that they're similar is because they're leaps that take place during historically significant periods of time, but yet are using those historically significant events as the backdrop, whereas the leap itself is taking place during it. The backdrop is not ultimately what's important, it's what is occurring within it. In the original Quantum Leap, in season 3, episode 7, was called Black on White on Fire, and it took place in 1965 in Watts. This was during the Watts riots in California. And Sam leaped into a black man who had he was a medical student, and he had a white girlfriend. And the whole story centered around, it wasn't about Sam stopping the riots. As Doctor Who would say, that's a fixed point that cannot be changed. The bigger story, though, was Sam trying to help the communities find some sort of peace. The guy he leapt into was very much in love with this woman, but her white father, who was the police officer chief, didn't want his daughter to be with this man. He didn't come out as overtly racist, but he was just kind of like your standard of the time type of thinking. I think it was more that he didn't want her to be with him because he felt it was dangerous for her safety, that being with him could get her killed because of what was going on there at the time. But the police officers that were around them, there was definitely some racism going on there. And then you've got the people in the African American community that, they're already lit up because of what instigated Watts, and Sam's character is trying to calm them down because he doesn't want anybody else getting hurt, but it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And eventually, some lives are lost at Sparks. Ultimately, one of the characters taking the girlfriend hostage, and, it doesn't end with a pretty tied up little pink bow. People die. Sam ultimately is able to do what he needs to do, but it doesn't end pretty. As I said, people die. It ain't perfect. But again, the Watts Rises just uses the backdrop. The important part is what actually happens within the episode itself. Now, in What a Disaster, in the new show, episode 6, takes place during San Francisco earthquake. And Ben is there trying to find the guy's son, and also somewhat trying to repair the marriage between the man and him and the Leapy's wife. Unfortunately, you don't get a lot of time to get to know them, despite the fact that Jewel Staite is playing the wife. Love Jewel Staite from Firefly. She's always great. You don't get a lot of time with her or anybody else, really. And the story is very frenetically paced. He gets in there, not 2 minutes after he's there, the earthquake happens, and he's trying to lead the wife back to their old apartment complex so they can find the son who's there. And it's basically one disaster after another, and there's not a lot of time for conversations, for emotional beats, for talking. In the Watts episode, despite all the violence that was going on during the riots, and there were quite a few scenes where, Sam and the girlfriend were in the clinic tending to the wounds of the people that got caught in the crossfire. Children were bloody, shot. I mean, you see scenes of police officers turning hoses onto people. I mean, it was violent. But in the midst of all that action, the conversations between Sam and the girlfriend and Sam and Felipe's brother, Sam and the people in the black community, and trying to figure out a way to broker some sort of peace. I mean, by the end of it, Sam was overwrought. And when the little boy died, I think Sam had just lost it because he felt like, what am I doing here if I can't even save this kid? What's it all for? It's got to mean something, you know? But at the end of the day, it did. Even though it didn't exactly turn out the way Sam wanted it to turn out, he did what he was there to do. He stopped the violence from getting worse. He stopped the girl from getting killed, possibly by her own father. And he made it so that the guy he left into could finish medical school, and they could have a life together. But instead of leaving Watts and going to another community, they would stay in Watts and do what they could to build the community back up and make it a better place. There were so many different layers in this episode and so many things that were going on, and quite a few things that happened that changed. It wasn't necessarily things that he was sent there to do. It's just stuff that happened as a result of him being there and of changes he made and things that he caused to happen. Whereas in the new episode, on the new show, he and the Leapy's wife don't really have that much time to talk, because about halfway through, when they're running around trying to find the son, she gets hit. She gets electrocuted or something, and he has to take her to the hospital, or he has to rely on someone else to take her to the hospital, and he continues on searching for the son. So by the end, when he saves the son, and it was great that they were doing some flashbacks to his own childhood, where he remembers his mother and how his mother died. His mother had an aneurysm when Ben was a teenager in high school, and the last time he had been with her when she was alive, they were fighting, and he never really got over that, and because he felt like his mother died thinking that she hated him when he really didn't, and he felt helpless that he couldn't save her. So that was a big memory for him. And then at the end of the episode, he convinces Addison to tell him what his mother's phone number is in New York, because the time frame he's in, his mother's still alive, which is direct correlation to what happened in the pilot, the original. After Sam left out of the test pilot and into the baseball player, at the end of it, throughout the whole episode, Sam had been begging Al to tell him what his last name was so that he could call his father, because in that time frame he was in, his father was still alive. He just wanted to talk to his father. Finally, he managed to break Al down enough that he finally told him his last name was Beckett, so that he was able to call his father and finally talk to him. He couldn't identify himself as Sam, but he could at least talk to him. And this is what Ben was doing with Addison. He finally got her number and he was able to talk to her, although how Addison knew what his mother's number was like 30 years ago when she was still alive in an apartment that she doesn't even live in anymore, I don't know. But anyway, the reason why that was in this episode, first of all, is because this was supposed to be the original pilot, and the majority of it was filmed in that vein. The present day scenes was not the original present day scenes. That was something they filmed later on, when they realized they weren't going to be using that particular episode as the pilot. So that's why it seems very choppy, and that the present day scenes don't seem to fit. But yeah, there's definite differences between just those two episodes. Same kind of overall story beats, but at the same time, the way that it's directed and the way that it's written and the way that the characters act in the episodes, vastly different. So much more care taken in Black and White on Fire to develop the characters, to make you care about them, the drama within that story. Whereas in the new one, you're only there with him for like a day and a half. You don't get that much time. She says at the end that they, not only did he save the son, but they managed to repair their relationship. I was like, how? Because he hasn't really had that much time to sit down and talk to her. He was talking to her at first, and then all she was doing was arguing, and then they decided to go find their son. She gets hurt and goes in the hospital, so he hasn't really been around her long enough to have to connect with her. So how is she going to mend things with, is he going to mend things with her? It doesn't make much sense. He didn't even have that much time to really get to know the son either, but used his regret that he wasn't able to put things right with his mother to help the son to see, his parents' perspective. There's just so many differences, so much of the same stuff that's wrong. Not enough care with the leaps. An observer who is more annoying than helpful. The title sequence is terrible. I miss the original intro and the music. Oh my god. Not enough immersion in the time frames. Too much teamwork. Big team. That wasn't necessary. But I guess that's what all shows are about now. Big team members. I want the show to be successful. I really, truly do. I want it to be what Quantum Leap was. But I keep feeling like it's not going down that road. I wanted Sam to be there. I still am crossing my fingers that Scott Bakula will make an appearance somehow, but at the same time, I'm not holding my breath. This show needs Sam. Oh my god, in the worst way, does it need Sam? Well, anyway, that's about it for me as far as reviews go. Quantum Leap is off for the winter break. We'll be back in January, so we'll continue. I'm not going to do episode by episode reviews because, like I said, the issues are pretty much the same all the way through. So there's only 6 more episodes in the back half. So once those episodes air, I'll do one like mega dump and we'll discuss it then. As far as I will do a review of Litavenko in December when it comes out. I don't know for certain if there's going to be a Doctor Who Christmas episode this year. I don't think there is. Because Chibnall's era is officially over. Shooties is not starting up until 2024. From what I've been able to ascertain, it looks like the anniversary episodes are literally happening over the anniversary. So, next year. So this might be the first year where we actually don't get a Doctor Who holiday anything. If we do, I'm sure we'll hear something, but I seriously don't think we are. Rose Tyler Dimension Canon Part 2 is out. I haven't had the chance to listen to it. Been too busy. I usually like to listen to it in the car when I'm on longer trips, but I haven't had the occasion to take one yet, so I will get around to it at some point. And I will definitely do a review of that when I can. Yeah, so the next time you hear from me will probably be next month for Litavenko. And then we'll see what happens with Quantum Leap after that. Crossing my fingers, but not holding my breath.
Good night.